Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another edition of Infection Podcast. My name is Nick Craig. You can follow me on X at Nicholas M. Craig or check out our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Joining me as always, hopefully had a nice Father's Day, Brian with an I, Aldridge. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I did have a wonderful Father's Day.
Excellent.
Family, but if you want to find me, of course, you can find me at Boise Computer on X or at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Getter, Truth Social, and all the other places.
So, Brian.
So I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Go
Well, so I see you've got a background here that we're looking at for
Yes.
our video listeners. Does this background happen to be a game that rhymes with Morason's Mead?
Yeah, pretty close.
Okay.
This is the new Assassin's Creed. What's it called?
Shadows.
Assassin's Shadows. Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And what brought this to my attention was Grums, who I mentioned him last week, but he does a lot
great.
of he's a guy who used to work for Blizzard and does a lot of commentary, does game development, non-woke game development.
The best way I would describe, he is, and I know this word is used a lot, but I would almost describe as kind of a whistleblower a little bit. He's got a lot of
inside industry contacts.
Yes.
So he'll be able to reach into Blizzard and be like, hey, what's happening to this? And he actually can get some feedback from people that are still in the company, and a lot of people respect him as a developer. So he's able to get information from people that, they just wouldn't randomly share with a normie.
You'd also describe it as a lot of institutional knowledge. He knows very well how the video game industry works. He is not in the favor of the current video game industry, as he spends a lot of his time on Twitter lobbing hand grenades at them over some of their nonsense. But, there's plenty of X accounts and social media accounts that, call out what goes on in the video game industry. This is a guy that's been in the upper echelons of that and is now kind of on the outside. So what exactly is he talking about here?
Well, he brought it up in a post on X where he mentioned this and just was talking about how there was pretty much cultural appropriation of this. I'll put a link for one. I'll try to find his comment directly, but he's the one. I saw it on his page and just kind of started looking into it. And this is a character that is supposed to be placed in China Japan at the time of, samurais and everything else. But the main character is a black man, which I would love if they took this exact same situation and let's say something that's historically black, let's say, in Africa sometime with tribes. If you're doing a video game that had tribes of black people and you were trying to display that in a game, would you turn around and make the main character white? Would you make him, Asian, Hispanic, whatever it is? Do you think that people, or not people, because I think that this is a silent or a quiet or loud majority or minority, So we're the quiet majority. I think what we hear and get a lot of feedback from PC Gamer Kotaku is a loud minority of people that don't represent the masses. And here they're saying that this is perfectly okay. But if you were to reverse this situation and do it slightly different, they would freak out and say that it was racist and it was something that was, not culturally appropriate. But because it's happening to either an Asian or a white person, which seems to be the okay poster child to beat, this is okay. And I just, I don't mind that it happens because I've seen this happen with characters that were white that were placed into various, situations. What's that one with Tom Cruise, wasn't it? I don't know if that was based off, but he was a samurai. The Last Samurai, wasn't it The Last Samurai?
I'm not sure. I never saw Last Samurai. I'm familiar with the
2003 film.
Okay.
It's based on the 1870. Oh, so this was based on the 1877 rebellion, and I think that was actually a white person who fought with the samurais. But that's not what this is. There's no cultural significance to this. There was never a black samurai. Now, I guess there was a white samurai at some point, and they can get mad about that.
Here
But
would
there
be
wasn't a black one.
Here would be a better analogy. You take like a group like the Tuskegee Airmen, which are a group of African American pilots during World War II, and you did a movie about them, and half of the pilots were white. It's not the issue.
Exactly. That's the perfect comparison.
It's not the issue is not that they're white. The issue is that
samurai
historically
is pride in their culture. Like, this is something.
Yeah, but hold on, Brian. Let me finish my point. The issue is not that the guys are white. It's the issue is that the Tuskegee Airmen were a group of African American pilots. So if you're going
what
to
made
portray
them special and unique was that they were African American pilots.
That's the whole thing. So it's like that's so here's the thing. I'm an unabashed conservative. I think anybody that follows me on X knows that that's the case. Anybody that has had the pleasure, Brian, the distinct honor and pleasure of listening to my morning radio program can know that pretty handedly. I've not been somebody in the past that has been outraged over this in particular. I think conservatives may have gone a little too far with this. It's almost the equivalent to the cancel culture that they say they hate so much. And so there's times where it's like, oh, this protagonist is this or that. I haven't really bought into this, but it's getting to the point now, and I'd like to read for you the opening paragraph in the Kotaku article, which I'll note, thank God for Kotaku, they've got their LGBTQIAP plus banner across the top of their website. If not, I'd probably have to off myself. Use maybe some ancient samurai trick, Brian, to because I dishonored my family because I wasn't reflecting in Pride Month. But I want to read for you the first paragraph. When Ubisoft unveiled Assassin's Creed Shadows in May, there was backlash directed at the inclusion of Yosaka, the game's black samurai co-lead and real-world historical figure. Some argued that the reaction was simply over a matter of what they saw as a historical inaccuracy, as they repeated that the real Yosaka was not a true samurai. Others who've joined in the backlash made no effort to hide behind the fact that they were just racists, upset by the idea of a black man starring in a game set in feudal Japan. So, Brian, congratulations. You're just a racist and you're upset. Congratulations, my friend. You've hit pinnacle video game journalism at this point. So if you voice a concern, it's because you're a racist.
Well,
great news, great information,
and that's the thing is
informative.
If you can put it to some sort of a cultural reality, right? Then bring that in there and make it the story about him being the only black or African. He wasn't a samurai, but whatever he was in that culture, just like they did with Tom Cruise, and that was a real world character. As long as they're sticking to things that are real world and then I don't have an issue with that. But, are they staying accurate to what this, was he an actual samurai and is that who they're trying to represent him as? If he wasn't, then that's a disrespect to the samurai. I think it's funny that they're going to do something about, finally bringing Assassin's Creed to Japan in a way that will show a lot of their culture and they don't even use any, Japanese guy for it. It's just odd to me. But whatever, this is the culture we live in, and this is the new normal that we've come to expect from these type of companies. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, because Grums had highlighted, Capcom does Capcom is a video game company from many years ago. They made a lot of games.
I will note though,
quite some time.
Assassin's Creed is Ubisoft, not Capcom.
Oh, Ubisoft. This is separate. Yeah, we're I'm bringing something else in, but Capcom had done they pretty much put out a poll, I guess you could call it, where people can vote, and they have a whole set of questions, and they publish that. And I don't know if you can pull that up because you love infographics.
First, yes, I do.
So look at the results. Yes, here.
Okay.
And here he had pointed out, now they kind of break this up into multiple sections. Of course, they have male, female, and other. So your other would be your people who either choose not to disclose, non-binary, whatever it is. That's 4%. So there's 10,000 people out of this that say 10,700 that are roughly that say that they're other, mostly males. So definitely a heavy male demographic.
Mostly male, 82%.
Yeah, 82%. So that's it's heavily male is their audience. If you keep going, you can see in here that they've got breakdowns for each section, and they have a number of questions. So that's the male-female ratio. They break down by country. United States is the biggest demographic. They have 28% of the people that voted. They have a lot of questions that I don't really care about, as far as who's your favorite character, things that are more tied to characters in their demographic, or as far as their game universe. But they go through and they have on here, what are the most important things, and it's towards the bottom, that you look for in a video game. And I feel that this is where most companies are missing the point. Of course, we're 82% male here, right?
Which yeah, well, I mean, that's who's playing video games. I know that's probably a hard nut to crack for the illustrious video game folk, but I mean, sorry, guys, your demographic is teenage and middle-aged dudes.
Yes.
Sorry, that's your audience, like it or not.
And so they said, what's the most important aspect that you look for in Capcom games? That's what they're talking about. Sure. And they say exhilarating gameplay, which I can understand. You want to have the game be fun. What's the number two? What's your guess on the number two here? Unique and attractive characters. Now, has that been what American game studios, or ones that are influenced by American game studios, or industries, what they have been going for? It seems like their goal has been to make the characters less attractive. I mean, you can go through and look at them. They'll make them uglier than the models that they put in there.
Without getting too far down the rabbit hole, Brian, I mean, one of the things that video games for the longest time, anytime there's a female protagonist, she's got big boobs. And that's just that's just been a constant staple in video games.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not, that's just been what people have. Look at Bayonetta is the greatest example of a female protagonist that everybody loved. You look at Tomb Raider, Lara Croft, is that her name?
Yep.
You look at her in those games. Yeah, on the PS2, her boobs were a triangle. But as the games got more advanced and more poly counts, that's what they did. Same thing in comic books, Brian. Similar thing in animated series as well. That has been a staple for female protagonists. Again, whether you in the industry like it or not. And what have we seen as of late, where they are now not showing any sort of the sexuality of the character, covering all of that up. And based on this Capcom, and Capcom makes fighting games, and where you see all the scantily dressed ladies and all the fighting games ripping your skull out and bashing it on the floor in Mortal Kombat. That's what the audience wants. I mean, this is what they're saying they want, right?
Well, but the thing is the studios and these companies aren't listening to them. And if you jump over really quickly, I put a new link here.
Sure. What you got?
To show you an example. Here's from Call of Duty. They put out a patch, and they're making the butt more flat. So from season 1 to season 2, you can see here, you can see the butt before, and then you can see the butt after.
So this is season 2.
That's the after. So go.
Oh yeah.
So that's before.
There's a big difference.
So they flattened out her butt because they felt like it was intimidating to the women. Was it 10% or 20% of the play?
Wait, but don't women like having a nice, attractive?
But the thing is, the problem is they're comparing the characters to themselves. Why? When I watched He-Man when I was a kid, did I get all sad that I didn't look like He-Man? Do you think I still care? I didn't care about.
I think you did.
Those guys are all roided up. I mean, the '80s characters that they put were guys who have muscles. They were huge. I didn't think I need to look like that. That was a fantasy character that I felt no obligation to resemble. But the problem is, everybody thinks that they need to resemble these characters. They don't need to look like you. And I'm not saying you specifically, Nick. But whatever woman out there...
No, they definitely don't want to look like me. That's not a good... Nobody would want... I
don't think they need to look like the average game player, because if that happened, they'd be way overweight and they'd be most likely slobs. I mean, come on, that's the average video game person in the world.
Thanks to our audience of Infection Podcast.
We embrace that. I mean, but is that something that video gamers are ashamed of? Like, that's just what it is, and we don't try to pad that or make it make people feel better about it. That's just reality. But here, Like they just try to make women less attractive, and it's like,
this
why?
is a travesty.
I mean, next season they're going to be trans. I'm sure. They're halfway there.
Next progression
the
is
ugly dude butt,
which I have. So this character actually represents.
I mean, it resembles us. I mean, like, what are we aiming for?
Huh.
Just, what are they pushing toward? They're trying to come up with what they really want is this generic character that can be male, female, and you're not quite sure, so that they can say, see this one, they're trying to make that normal. When you see somebody, you're like, I'm not sure what that is. That's what they're trying to push.
Again, but you know what's funny is, so you see it pushed in certain industries, video games being one of them, television and movies being, but it's not all the time. Like, you watch some movies and TV shows, new movies and TV shows, and you're like, you don't notice anything that is off because it's the standard, it's the norm. If you have, in most television shows, if you have a female and male protagonist or antagonist doing something, both of them tend to be very attractive. The dude is a stud, the chick is hot. I mean, that's just like very typical, very standard in movies and television and animated shows, in comic books. That is kind of the standard norm. And I guess these people want to break that standard, Brian. They're not okay with the stud macho man in the movie that always gets the chick, and they're not okay with the hot chick that everybody's fawning after in the TV show. I guess I would argue that consumers like that because they do consume this kind of content. You look at the Barbie movie as a recent example, of which I didn't see it, but I saw plenty of memes all over the internet. Sydney, whatever her name is, who played Barbie, is a smoke show. I mean, she is a 10 out of 10. And the dude that plays Ken is a stud. Yep. And that did very well. And that's a brand new movie. What did that come out in, like October or something of last? It came out when Oppenheimer did. So like October of last year.
Yep.
And I just don't get it.
The thing is, and they could have totally, if that's the thing, is it seems like there's some companies in a situation like that, they just go straight for the wall or, straight for the cliff. They're like, let's make them diverse. And then they make the character totally different. Do you think that Barbie is supposed to represent us? Am I supposed to represent Ken? No, I don't look at Ken and be like, that's supposed to represent me. No, that's like an idealistic character. Right?
I have the poster character in my bedroom every night. I cry myself to sleep wishing I could be Ken, Brian. It's a sad reality for people like me. It's a sad.
That's the hard part. Is we're okay with not having to those be us or us not having to be. I think a lot of culture is so stuck on filters and presenting in a way, and they've gotten away from people seeing who they really are, to where they fight that now. To where, I don't know, you and I, we pretty much represent, we don't come on here with a bunch of filters on our cameras. We don't come in here portraying anything different really than who we are for the most part. Like, I don't feel like I'm fake on here. But
I don't show up drunk. I mean, it's not a full representation of me.
Anyway, save that for like an hour after the podcast.
An hour? About 15 minutes. What are you talking about?
15 minutes. But, I think that's the difference is, we've got a generation that is so attached on, I have to be. Have you ever watched that Whatever
filters.
podcast? Yeah. Have you ever seen the clips from the Whatever podcast? They do a lot of having these girls that are supposed to be attractive girls or girls that are on OnlyFans, and then they ask them questions. And really, these guys are pretty conservative. I've seen some memes
from this show.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so they go on there and they'll ask these women, like, rate yourself. And of course, women always say, I'm an 8, I'm a 9, I'm a 10. And a guy will be like, I don't know, I'm a 5.
5.
A 4.
It's 5, 6. Yeah.
Yeah. Average, they're a fairly realistic representation. But like women, for some reason, every time think they're a 9 or a 10. And it's just like, you don't have to be that. And the people that you see as 10s, that's a painted picture that you're seeing that's not really representative of what they are.
Okay, but here's the greater issue. People Now, again, if they want to change this as an industry, this is their prerogative to do so. People want to see attractive people. Brian, have you ever been to a Victoria's Secret before? Or one of those kinds of stores? Life, yes. Okay. What do the models and the mannequins and the pictures of the girls in the front, in the window when you walk by the store, are they attractive or are they not attractive?
I mean, 20 years ago they were attractive. I haven't been in one for a long time. But
I presume they're still attractive now. That's the presumption I'm going off.
But
why is that the case? But why is that the case?
Things where they put ugly ones in there.
But why is it
putting ones that are way overweight? Because they want. But
why were they attractive?
Because the girls are aiming for a fantasy that, I want my man to see that. When
come in and buy our underwear, and then you will look like this. Precisely, right? Yes. Isn't that the whole thing? Yeah. Okay. That's what I was trying to get at. That's a standard marketing advertising setup. That's what you do. When they were advertising the Barbie movie, Margot Robbie, who played Barbie, was the one on all of the posters in her tight pink dress. Why was that the case? Because it was attractive. And people and it draws people in. That. Precisely. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Thing
it's,
with this new
it's not
generation is it seems. Do you think they're attracted to things that we would find more repulsive?
No. I don't
think they pretend.
I don't think it's even a pretend. It's this. I believe at a kind of primal level, humans are attracted to certain things. Now, obviously, those can be. Obviously, those are varied. Brian, while you might be into brunettes, I might like blonde, whatever. I mean, there's some level of that, but at a very, very primitive level, we all kind of have similar things that we're attracted to. You can trace this back in
Is there
history.
Even like there's that where they measure out on the face? Like there's a certain ideal layout of the face that I don't remember the name of the measurement, but yeah, there is an ideal that your brain registers that as attractive just because of the mathematics of it. And that's something that they don't want to accept. They want to say what your brain feels is not real. And you have to think of something else is attractive other than what your brain is telling you. And it's like, well, why? Why should you try to force? You're saying your brain is sexist or hateful or whatever it is because it doesn't find certain things attractive. I mean, why is it their job to try to force that issue?
It's called the golden ratio, 1 to 1.618. That is the golden ratio that is used to measure symmetry.
And that's the thing is that's an ideal layout that your mind will say that is an attractive face.
It doesn't even have to be attractive. Symmetry in general, things that you find
matches that,
pleasing.
And you will find it appealing. Sure. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's where they've gone against this, and not saying that having a black samurai has anything to do with that, but the general video game characters that they're trying to create now with a lot of these more woke companies are ones that are just, you look at them, it's like, that's not attractive at all. And I understand that you're not always trying to make an attractive character, but why are you purposely trying to make people look at your game and not see it as pleasant?
I disagree with your premise. I think you are trying to make an attractive character because, Brian, let's go back to our first infographic that we looked at here. Who is the audience and who is playing video games? Let's go back to the chart. 82% dudes. So if you're going to have a chick in your video game, you should make her hot so that guys will go and buy the game, right? I mean, is it? I can't believe that this is such a complicated discussion that we're having here. It's as simple as this.
Who do they keep on catering to? The thing is if you're
a bunch of freaks and weirdos.
If 82% of your clientele were one thing, why are you trying to make 80% of it go to the 20%? Like, why is that such a big deal to them? They keep trying to represent who is not their demographic. Like, sell video games to dudes for the most part. There's going to be video game studios that make video games for the 20% of whatever else other demographics are out there. But if you're selling to a mass audience, why wouldn't you sell a product design? Just like if you're making, we bought a minivan not too long ago. If you're making a minivan, aren't you going to make a minivan for the person that's going to buy it? You're going to make it to where for the family, so okay, so we have spots for kids. We have enough cup holders for everybody, to have drinks. You look at who's going to use it, and then you break down the aspects of what you put into it to cater to them. And that's not, they quit doing that in video games. They're not catering to the average male audience anymore. They pretend like they're catering to a different audience, but those people aren't buying the video games. Like you end up selling to nobody, and that's why so many of these companies end up having such bad numbers, because they created this fake audience that doesn't exist because they want them to exist.
And that's exactly the case. They are targeting and pandering towards a group of players that does exist, Brian, but is at an infinitesimally small number in comparison to the larger consumer or buyer of video games as a whole. I mean, that's it, plain and simple.
It's the same thing, too. You look at Breaking Point Aftermath. He brings up how many men or people, will not break down even just men, but how much of the demographic is gay. And because look at how much they're catering to gay people. I mean, we're in Pride Month. They've got they've got trans bullets and all these other things right now in Call of Duty, which is pretty short-sighted. You've got 1.2 to 6.8% of the adult population of the United States identifies as LGBTQ.
What was that number?
1.2 to 6.8%.
Okay.
You're catering a whole month, and everything in your products is promoting 1.2 to 6.8% of the population.
So average it at 4%.
So 4% of the population is who
Yes.
you're catering to in a lot of these products. Because look in the video game industry, how many things are now pushing for gay characters so that we can be representative. Okay, the 4%, if there was 4% characters or gay characters in video games now, you would have to take out gay characters to reach that number. Because look at just even in Overwatch, they've got what, 3, 4, 5 plus. I have
no idea.
Gay characters in there now. 3, 4, 5, 6 out of what, 12 characters? They made a quarter of the characters gay. That doesn't represent, that's not representative of the demographics of the United States at all.
Well, and this is always the issue with virtue signaling, which is all that this is from the left, is that they talk about equality and they talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all these great buzzwords that they've concocted to push forward whatever agenda or narrative. Yet when you do exactly what you just did, which was actually base it on the numbers, actually base it on the statistics and the percentages, you find out that half, if not more, of the nonsense that's going on is not representative of anybody at all. I mean, you might, Brian, look and say, every individual that's on a college campus right now is an insane person that is marching with the Palestinian flag, screaming about their support for Hamas. That might be a fair assessment for you to make based on what you've seen in the media. That is a very small representation of individuals that currently attend college, right? But it's an easy thing to say, oh yeah, this is prominent everywhere, when the reality is it's not. The bigger issue here is what you hit on, is that they are advertising towards and marketing their content towards a non-existent audience. And in the meantime, they're pissing everybody else off.
So they can feel better about themselves.
Precisely.
Right?
And in the meantime, they're pissing everybody else off because nobody wants this. I mean, nobody is asking.
It used to be that you would have products made for niche audiences that you would target at a niche audience. Now the niche audience target is the main target that they're going towards, and then they get pissed that the main audience doesn't want that. That's not what they asked for. It's not what they want to have. That's not what they want to play.
I pull this graph back up because when you look at the audience, you look who's playing, you look who's got the buying power, you look who's purchasing. And now this is one survey from one game company. Are there more than 14% of females that play video games? Yes. But it's...
Especially if you bring in mobile games. If you bring in mobile games, then it jumps, because a lot of them play various mobile games. There's a much higher number playing mobile games.
Sure. I'm sure this is a decent depiction of the industry as a whole.
Probably console/PC. This would be a very good representation.
I'd say so. Close enough for the argument to still work. And these guys are constantly swinging and missing in regards to anything and everything that they're trying. And as I opened up with, Brian, I'm not typically the person, and even in this case with the Assassin's Creed game, I don't particularly care what they do with the main player. I'm not somebody, I would not answer the survey the way that the other people did about interesting and unique characters. That's never been something, the look of the character, or that I've never really that's never been a thing that I care about all that much, if I'm being honest with you. And I don't particularly care about the whole Assassin's Creed thing. It's just constant. It's in every facet of everything, and it's pandering, it's gaslighting, and it's virtue signaling towards a group of people so that they don't get canceled by the woke mob for having a white guy as their lead character. I mean, that's really what this comes down to. Plain and simple. GTA 6 is going to be screwed when that game comes out.
It'll be interesting to see what happens.
The attention that game is going to, can you imagine what the Kotaku articles are going to read about that game when it comes out, and the
we'll see.
Terrible atrocities that you can commit in that game?
One thing,
can you believe you can walk into a strip club and pay her, Brian, and then rip her out and run her over with a car in the middle of the road? Can you believe the atrocities of this, Brian?
I mean, for some reason they give Grand Theft Auto a pass. At least they have. We'll see how that goes.
That was 2012, dude.
Yeah.
We are living in
very different
we
time.
are in a different world at this point. If you've been in a coma since 2012, you're waking up today and wondering what the hell has happened.
One thing I thought was
not
funny
the
is
same world.
So glad, they're
the trash bag company.
No, it's a gay and lesbian.
I have no idea.
Acronym. Here we go. It is the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation.
Okay.
So, according to them, let me tell. So this is if someone on that side of the aisle, let's say, were to come and say, "I want to give you some numbers," here's what they would say to you. Well, nearly 20% of American gamers identify as LGBTQ+, according to a study from GLAAD. They polled their own members, which would be all gay members. And Nielsen, less than 2% of all.
More reputable.
Nielsen's better, yeah. Less than 2% of all video games include LGBTQ+ characters or storylines, is what they claim. But the 20% of American gamers identify as LGBTQ+, which that's totally opposite numbers of what you get from other things.
2% of all video games when? Are they saying of every video game ever made?
Yeah, they must be polling like every video game, not 2024 video game.
I was going to say,
they say under 2% of console games include those characters.
Bull.
Which I don't find that, I don't find that accurate. I mean, unless they're animal characters, but they still make some of the animal characters gay too. So what are you talking about?
What was that Netflix show with the cow or the horse or whatever that was coming out as gay to her grandmother? What was that show with the little cow looking thing? How excited she was that her pronouns were something, this, that, and the other. I mean, it's a freaking talking cow.
But they view it as still underrepresented. They think
we're done.
There still needs to be only 2%, but every video game that I've seen come out, a major video game, has had representation.
Wrap it all up. It's all done. It's sailed, Brian. We have lost the Great Republic. There's nothing left.
And Breaking Point Aftermath, he's been mentioning the new Acolyte, the Star Wars show, and that has the two main Jedi, or two females. Well, I don't want to assume, but they're lesbians, and they use the Force to have a baby together. And so that's a new thing that just happened.
Wait, what?
They use the Force so that they could get pregnant between the two women. This is a liberal.
No. You're full of it. You're no way.
I am not. I promise you. Promise you. This
shit.
is what
no
happened.
way.
I promise you. I promise.
They use the Force for a lesbian couple to get pregnant?
Yes, inside of Star Wars.
What do they use? The Force to have a dude come and hang out? I mean, is that what
I don't understand how the Force works, but somehow Force.
The Force, you would move an object. So you're moving a dude into a place to make that thing a possibility. That's what my assumption would be.
You want to know the average audience score on Rotten Tomatoes for it? Acolyte? I mean, since they're so on top of what people want, right?
Is it less than 22%?
I'm pulling up the latest. Yes,
Okay.
it is less than 22%.
Oh, right,
It
it's
is
that
14%.
bad.
The
Oof.
audience scores 14% for the new Star Wars Acolyte. It's Disney just keeps on just shooting themselves in the foot. Like they just can't figure out when you push. Now I know GLAAD has different numbers, but when you push a 4%, you're pushing 4% political view and 4%, view of or representation of who they are down the 96% throats, right? You're going to get this response. This is not what people want. We don't let our kids watch most Disney stuff now because of this. Everything is gay in Disney. Gay,
Dude, look at
gay.
Look at this article from 8 hours ago over at the IndieWire. The Acolyte introduces
gay space witches. Isn't it great?
Witches.
They're saying a thrilling development. They think this is great. We got queer space witches now.
What the hell
Star
does that
Wars
even mean?
That don't need no man because they can make their own. They got this. This is the new normal. And if you look at the cast, like they've gotten rid of almost every character that was white is no longer there. The actors are all either Asian, they're people of color, POCs, people of color.
I'm enthralled now. I'm reading about. I had no idea this was happening.
Yeah, I'm glad I could open your eyes. Maybe you could talk about this on your radio show tomorrow.
I am 100% going to bring this up on the radio show. This is,
They are now, yeah. So because they don't want a man to bring a man into this, they are now not even needing men anymore.
So
Force is that good.
I will admit that I am not a big Star Wars fan. I've watched the first original 3 or 4. I'm at I don't know which one I'm at right now. If you give me a second, I am more than happy to do so. I don't know what Star Wars I'm currently at as I watch through the original movies, but I think I've watched 3 or 4 of them. There is some little love tension in that until you find out that they're related after all, they're brother and sister.
Yeah,
so
that was a little twist.
There's a little bit of like a little bit of you would call it like sexual tension would be described. It's in every television show and every movie ever made. There's always some sort of sexual tension. They build that into everything, but it's not, from what I've watched, it's not overly sexual. I don't know that I've seen anybody have sex or any allusions to that. I could be wrong. Maybe there is a scene or two. But it's a shame that they've taken that movie and that series and that franchise and now believe that it is a good idea to bring hold on, I got to pull the headline back up. A queer space witch into the fold. How that is relevant in the Star Wars lore, I fail to wrap my head around, Brian.
Yeah, this is the new Star Wars. This is why I don't watch the new Star Wars stuff. I quit watching The Mandalorian halfway through. I don't even know if they're still doing it anymore. I quit watching it halfway through when it started getting all woke. Quit watching pretty much anything Disney other than Mickey Mouse for our youngest boy. Pretty much we'll stop watching Disney altogether. It's just they're pushing this so hard, and when you talk to the directors that are behind these shows, they say we try to put. And there's quotes from one of them that says, "I try to put gay in whatever I can into everything in their shows." That's the new normal for them, and that comes back. Look at how much money that Disney has lost in the past couple of years. Look at how much money Bud Light has lost in the past couple of years. Obviously, money isn't important to them. Their religion is more important to them, and they're showing it. They're willing to go bring the ship down burning for their religion, and that's their choice. Like, my choice is to not give them money. That's how I solve that problem, right? And that's how I've chosen to do it, and I think it's working. Disney is going through a lot of financial troubles right now because of this, and a lot of their shows have tanked because of it. Ones that should have been very well voted. The one that represented Buzz Lightyear, when he was younger, where they made him gay, that should have done very well, but they wove politics into a child's movie. And I don't want my 1-year-old, learning about gay stuff. in his cartoon. It's not appropriate. I don't need to bring sex into a show made for a 1-year-old, 2-year-old.
Dude, this is nuts. I'm reading about this show, and even like major publications are calling this hot garbage and saying this is a little overboard.
I mean, it's 50. They're at what was that at? 14%. It's 14%. Now, of course, the tomato meter. The people who write and supposedly represented us, is in our views. They say it's 84%. The different people writing articles about it, but the person who goes and sees it, 14%. There's a disconnect.
Huge disconnect.
So, they put on here some of the most popular on Rotten Tomatoes, and they put Star Wars: The Acolyte, 84%. They put it, to the lower right-hand side there. If you look, most popular. How is it most popular when the average person, you're saying 6 or 7, 10 people who work for a paper or whatever that wrote, these critics, you're saying that they make it the most popular when it's one of the worst scores? I mean, it's a 14%. Yours says 15 there, but refresh. Maybe it went up. Mine says 14% still. No, it went up. It went to 15%. Our listeners must be up there upvoting it like crazy.
Yeah, that or Rotten Tomatoes frantically deleting reviews to try and make this not be as big of a flop as possible.
Now as well, yeah.
Jesus. This, okay. To sound like a broken record, that's my intention here. I will use once again my rubber band analogy that I have talked about ad nauseum. And this is the rubber band. It continues to be pulled and pulled. Imagine it between your fingers. It is being pulled, and it is, Brian, it is breaking. I've been saying this for weeks. I've been saying this for months now. It's breaking. The rubber band is getting ready to snap on this finger and ricochet back in the other direction. And it's this kind of garbage that's doing it. People are boiling by this. Not because there's a gay character, not because of this, not because of that, because it's so freaking over the top. I'm going to be honest with you, Brian, and I assume you feel the exact same way, but I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I don't particularly care if a TV show or a movie has a gay character. It's really not relevant to me. I don't care if they're straight or they're gay. What am I interested in? Going back to the Capcom study. Either good gameplay, good immersive gameplay, or a good immersive television show.
Yep.
The sexuality of the character is not relevant. But when you make the entire show,
they make that the focus, not
it's the anchor.
Actual story.
Precisely. Yeah. It's the anchor of the story, and that's when you've lost it, because nobody cares about watching somebody else's sexuality. It's not interesting. Yep. I have always made this point. It's so interesting when you look at the LGBTQIAP+ plus community. I'm an ally. It's always so interesting. You look at these individuals and you're like, what's the most interesting thing about you? Oh, well, I'm trans. That's it. That's your most your whole personality. The most interesting thing about you is your sexuality.
Yeah.
I've never. I can't contemplate how boring and useless of an individual you must be, where your most exciting trait is the fact that you're straight, gay, trans, or something else. It's sad, Brian. It's really sad. And that's
the whole thing with OnlyFans as well, is you have all these women to where the thing that they're putting forward as their most interesting attribute should probably be one of their least interest. It's the least attractive to me. Because I'd find more attractive someone who's really talented at something, someone who's educated and intelligent, like things that make them unique and different. Where women taking off their clothes is not unique and different anymore.
All right. Well, we'll agree to disagree on that, but that's fine.
But any woman can do that, right? Any woman can do that. It doesn't make them.
Most
they
don't.
may have different attributes. Yeah, but you want to know what makes men attracted to the fact that for the women that do that, it's because most don't, right? If every woman was naked all the time, do you think they'd care about OnlyFans?
That's true.
They wouldn't be interested whatsoever in OnlyFans, and it's only because of the taboo that we find things interesting. When they make something, gay, just put it in your face, or whatever it is they're trying to represent, and they put it in your face, it's no longer interesting. It's not anything different. You're putting it's out there so much that it's just like, okay, whatever. And what's next? Like, we've seen 30 gay protagonists, 30 great gay main characters. Like, what's unique about your video game or your story? Like, what's the hook? And for the Acolyte, that's not a good hook. A Star Wars character being gay isn't a new hook anymore. That's not unique.
Breaking Point Aftermath says it very well. He says, sexuality is never interesting no matter the orientation. Yeah, I agree. It can be an important part of the story, but it's never it's just not interesting. It can be a good setup. It can help explain the story. It can help explain whatever is going on in the film, and it could be a relevant part. And if it is a relevant part of the story, it needs to be discussed. But when it's your anchor, when your whole world, if we're talking about a fantasy world or something like that, some sort of nonfiction world, when it is exclusively based around something as shallow as sexuality, it's doomed to fail, because as Breaking Point Aftermath points out, it's not interesting. How interesting is your sexuality?
And Otis Meeks on YouTube, he says, it is a South Park quote. He says, make it female, make it gay. You know, they have episodes where they just take every character and they talk. Yeah. And that was actually the Star Wars episode that they talked about that, where they were saying, you know, just everything, anything with Disney, make a female, make it gay. And then, you know, release it. That's their new thing. Lesbian space witches. Now that would have been a
queer.
That would, well, okay. I'm looking at a different article from them.us.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Or them.
I want to make sure you got your descriptions right, Brian. I'm
this one they said how the Acolyte wove queerness and lesbian space witches into Star Wars. They're so proud of it.
Disappointing headline that I think. I need it one more time, Brian. Please, please.
How the Acolyte wove queerness and lesbian space witches into Star Wars.
It is literally a South Park joke. That is literally something that South Park would joke and say, hey, man, they're making all the space witches queer.
Yay.
I mean, it's like, it's literally a South Park joke.
Now, here's the subtitle on this one. Writer-director Leslie Headland's new series takes a nuanced approach to representation. How is that nuanced? You made them lesbian space witches that had a baby between two women, and you're saying that's nuanced? How's that nuanced? That's like taking all nuance out of it. There's no nuance. You take pretty much most men out of it. You take almost every white character out of it, and then you make them, POC queer representation, and then you're saying that's nuanced.
Can I read the
nuance?
I want to help some maybe of our non-English audience members. Okay. Maybe for the clarity of everybody, Brian, the definition of nuance, in case our audience was wondering, according to Merriam-Webster, it is a noun, and it is a subtle distinction or variation, a subtle quality. According to Merriam-Webster, that's what a nuance is. So I don't know that description that you just read fits my definition of what the word nuanced means.
I mean, they're saying nuance, but there's no nuance about it. I mean, this is like the least nuanced show out there. And so I just thought that it was kind of crazy. But this is the new Star Wars.
Me.
I thought that they were done. Like, I thought that they were going to be backing away after they lost so much money, and Disney Plus is doing horrible. You figured they'd be like, let's try something different and see if we start making money again. Nope, they're all in.
I have to read this story on my show tomorrow. I have no choice but to read this stupid article on my show at like 6:30 tomorrow morning. I have no choice. I'm gonna cold read it, not inject anything, and then just go to a commercial break and see what happens. I'm just going to cold read, because reading through this article, it is, often they'll be like, oh, it's something out of the Babylon Bee or The Onion, but it's well past that. I mean, we are way beyond satire media at this point. I mean, this is nutso. Absolute insanity. A little over 5 minutes into the third episode of Disney Plus's The Acolyte, Jodi, Turner Smith's mother, makes a gesture of love. She meets with her fellow witch mother and gently touches her chin and strokes her cheek. It's a beautiful moment of intimacy that in any other television show would be regarded as such. But given that this was Star Wars, it's a moment that immediately seems radical. Not only is the Acolyte introducing space witches, it's introducing space witches that are also very likely gay. Very likely, Brian. Not the fact that they use the Force as a lesbian.
They had a
couple
baby together. The two women. How are they not gay?
Very likely.
Where's the dude in the picture?
Article.
Show us where the guy in the picture that planted the seed. Where is that? Nowhere.
Dude, this is freaking insanity. I did not know it was this bad. Thank God I didn't. Thank God I'm not a Star Wars fan. I'd probably have to. I'd be so upset. I'd be like, my whole childhood, this whole setup, like it's all ruined. This there are like the Star Wars fanatics. Can you imagine what they feel? Like you've been invested in this franchise since you were a little kid, and now you turn it on to see space queer witches using the Force to have a queer baby. I mean, you talk about the fall from grace, Brian. This is it. Brian, it's not very often that something blows my mind as I literally do a political talk show for 3 hours a day. This is up there on the level of totally batshit crazy things that we've ever talked about. This is nuts.
Yeah, and but this happens, all stuff like this is happening on a regular basis now. Stuff that before, I remember here, okay, I'm gonna out myself as far as how old I am.
Okay.
I remember back in the 90s when there was a police officer show called Something Blue, and they had a butt on TV for the first time. I remember that was a big deal. There was a butt, like
couldn't have been in the 90s.
Shower.
I'm watching Miami Vice right now. That's in the 80s. There's chicks in bikinis all over the place. It had to have been in the 70s.
But it was a naked butt.
Oh, a naked butt.
An actual naked butt.
Okay, let's see if I can find this. Go ahead. Keep going. I'll find it for you.
Okay, it was Something Blue. But this was a big deal back then. And then after that, there was I don't remember if it was that show, but then they had like a gay kiss on TV, and that was
NYPD Blue.
Was that what it was? NYPD Blue?
It was a guy, actually. It was the first show to show a naked male butt on television.
Or something.
Yes.
And I remember that was a big deal at the time. And look where we're at now. Lesbian, space witches having babies on TV. There you go. I mean, they pushed it as saying we want to, allow these things to happen, pushing the limits. But like, where does it stop? Because if you look in Europe, their nighttime TV has full nudity. Like, there's no limits on what they put on TV at night in Europe. And that's where they're pushing for here. That's what they want. They want it to have to where you can turn on the TV and there's just topless and gay, sex scenes. Whatever.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Okay, and you're talking about cable television, sex scenes and nudity and that stuff in movies.
That was an over the air. That's what made it a big deal.
Sure,
over the air television. Yeah,
that stuff has been prevalent in media for 40, 50 plus, more than that, maybe even in the United States. Now, to your point, network television, not, but with the invention of cable and cable channels, you got more of that. Profanity started slipping in more to the culture. I mean, that stuff has happened, and I think most people have accepted that. Well, you might not like it, you might not agree with it. It's part of culture now. There is those words. I mean, they use them on regular daytime television now. I mean, you turn on the radio and you'll hear music that has got words that 30 years ago you would not believe that would be, maybe 40 years ago, that you would not think would be on radio, but they are now, and that's society everything is kind of chilled evermore. We're not wearing suits around everywhere. It's that we've kind of laxed as a society, which is a good thing and bad thing. But this stuff is just over the top. You're taking a well-respected, well-known franchise like Star Wars, and let's be clear with this. This is not the first time that there's been an issue with Star Wars. Disney has screwed this franchise 6 ways from Sunday. And I guess, there's two things here. Obviously, people are still consuming somewhat of it, Brian, because if they weren't consuming it, they truly would stop producing it. So people are still watching as of right now. Or two, they really just truly don't care what the audience, what the consumers, what the viewers, what the listeners actually want. Maybe that's also happening. Maybe it's some blend of both. I'm not sure. But I think I can say handedly, and I think the Rotten Tomatoes review would back up my point. The average Star Wars audience member is not interested in what you're selling. And that would indicate the 15% on Rotten Tomatoes, right? We've got a number. We've got some level of data, anecdotal or not, how accurate or not, that backs up that point, I think, pretty largely.
Yeah. Well, and we'll see where it goes. Because do you remember there was a big, there were some cartoons that came out, and I think one of them was a Scooby-Doo one, and like they totally just went crazy, if I remember correctly, on that.
I was watching the original Scooby-Doos yesterday. I had a lot of fun with that. I was able to borrow.
But
then
they released a recent
one.
Server. Yeah, and they had to make the one girl who has the glasses, gay and all this,
Velma?
And then they really went Velma. Yeah, they went totally off the edge. But that one, they had to stop it. The viewership went to practically nothing because people just were so disgusted by how they were doing it. It's probably most likely the same thing's going to happen with Acolyte, where their viewership's going to continue to drop off until they finally just stop developing it. And that's what they've done that with a number of shows lately. They've put out a number of shows that start really strong, but then once people see what's in it, it just tapers off.
The Halo show, man, had a lot of hope, and immediately within that show, 2 or 3 episodes in, it's just hot political garbage, and nobody watches it. The Halo show is not done well at all. I don't know how they're still producing. I don't know who's why. I'm one of the biggest Halo fans you'll find.
So here's another that was put out June 11th, and it says the Acolyte has the second least watched Star Wars series premiere.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and now they'll push it on other places saying, "Oh, it's the most watched of 2024." Star Wars or Disney premiere or whatever it was of Star Wars. Yeah, because they haven't really released anything else. But when you're talking, look at all the numbers and see what it represents, and it's the second least watched Star Wars premiere that was put out.
Breaking Point says I liked the Fallout show, but I only watched the first 2 episodes. Have you watched the Fallout show yet? Apparently,
I've watched all that they've released. I thought it was really good.
Is it good? Is that show got a bunch of this BS and nonsense in
it?
Oh, okay,
no, it wasn't. No, nothing too crazy. I mean, you've got various different characters. I don't even remember, who's gay, who's not gay. It wasn't something they brought up that much in the show. I mean, there are characters. I mean, I'm sure there was representation here and there, but it was just part of. See, I don't have an issue with it when it's just part of what the show's reality is, right? Sure. When it's just happening and there's characters that are this. It's just like real life in that way. There's people that are this, there's people that are that. That to me is normal. And they didn't shove any one particular thing that I can remember down my throat. And I really enjoyed that show. I'm waiting for them to do another season. I thought they did a really good job with it.
Oh, is it already over?
The first season is.
Gotcha. Okay.
They released it. So,
and that's an Amazon show, isn't it?
Be on a while. Yeah, that was an Amazon. Amazon put that one out.
So there you go. So this is maybe Amazon can maybe they're able to read the tea leaves a little bit, Brian, and see.
They'll show. Maybe they'll show people the way. Put out some shows. What we need to have happen is some kind of like a control study. You need to have some of these studios putting out stuff that just isn't packed with all of these politics. And if they do really well and they make a lot of money, they'll continue making those shows.
I mean, I've got your control right here.
These other studios might come back.
I mean, here's your control. Here's the Star Wars, 15%. Here's the Fallout TV show, 89%. There's your control. Yep. There's your A/B test. One is full of a bunch of woke BS. The other one is just a really good TV show, apparently.
And Donnie points out, he says, the guy who created Fallout is gay. His name is Tim Kaine. He's brilliant. He says he follows him on YouTube. He said he owns Fallout, but making a good show is about story first. And so he didn't, admit. I don't think most gay people, your average gay person, wants the way that they're represented on the screen. I don't think that that's what they appreciate. I don't think that represents the average gay person's experience. What they put out.
Oh, what, using the Force to have a baby as a lesbian couple?
Or being or saying here's what a gay person is and what they portray gay people on TV. I don't think that usually they catch a good representation of your average gay person. No, I mean, not that I would 100% know, because that's not, who I am, but I don't think that your average person would say that represents me. Like, who are they trying to represent in a lot of these things? And that's who I'm not sure. Because they say representation is so important. That's why I say represent. Who are they?
Well, with Brian, we got to approximately one of our stories this evening, and unfortunately,
we got one topic down.
We are out of time. I think it was a good topic, nevertheless. Where can folks find you on the Wild West that we call the internet, Brian?
All right, if you want to find me on X, you can go to @BoiseComputer. Of course, if you want to go to @Brian Aldridge on Gab, Gutter, Truth Social, and other places. If you want to go check out my blog, it's biteoftech.com. Or if you go to our website, infectionpodcast.com, just go to the upper right-hand side and you see where it says join us on Discord. That's an excellent place. Maybe you want to get a hold of Nick or I, give us some comments. Or if you want to toss a link into the show news channel, you can do that, and we'll review that before the live show. And that way the topic can make it into our show notes. If you want to watch that live show, you can do that through Twitch or YouTube, or we upload after the fact to Rumble, if you prefer going there. If you want to listen to the podcast, we've got our podcast forms at the lower right-hand side. There are a lot of different ways to listen. So whichever one is most convenient for you, pick that one. And then you can follow along with our show notes, because our episodes, once we post it up there to our podcast form, we post it on here, and we'll have all our show notes and everything that we referred to throughout that live show right on that page, and a video and audio player built right into it as well to make it convenient. If you want to support us, you can do that through the menu option up top, or you can go to infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yes, you absolutely can do that. Brian, as always, thank you very much. Appreciate your courage. We'll probably be on a different. We definitely won't be on a Monday next week. We'll probably be on a Tuesday or Wednesday. I've got some traveling I've got to do, but we'll let folks know in our Discord for that. Thanks for hanging out in the chat, Brian. Appreciate you as always. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Well, what do you say? What do you say, folks? That's going to do it for another episode of Infection Podcast. You can follow me over on X @Nicholas M. Craig. You can check out my day gig. It's called the Wilmington's Morning News Podcast, and it's available wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Wilmington's Morning News or visit my website, nickcraig.com. Maybe you want to read some of these ridiculously stupid articles we talked about. You can do all of that by heading on over to our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.